Well, I have no idea what we're talking about, but super excited to have Kurt and Wesley with me. And Wesley and I just recorded a great show with Emiliano and Shannon from Elevator. And I had her already, and Kurt and I hadn't caught up in a while. So I reached out to Kurt and said, "Hey, can you record a podcast today?" And he said, "I think so." And I said, "Perfect." And I sent him a link, and now here we are.
Here we are.
So that's the beauty of what we get to do on Flex Uncensored is figure out where we're going. But I think being able to discuss kind of what's going on out there. I mean, we're all seeing different things. Summer's always super chaotic. Kurt, you just moved into a new house, and he sent me a picture of him wearing his Flex Uncensored shirt. He looks like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins, the chimney sweep, because he's got the white around the eyes, and then everything else looks like he just jumped through a chimney. So
how was the move, Kurt?
Well, the move was really uneventful. It was the removal of the carpet, which was interesting. Evidently, it was structurally integral to the strength of the second floor. So when we pulled the carpet out, we realized that the stairs needed to be fixed. Carpenter looked at the stairs and realized they weren't really attached to much.
Love it.
So then that led to us gutting the entire ceiling in that section of the house and the room above, because we now need to raise it 5 inches. Old houses, am I right?
Yep. We did that a couple years ago. Our first house was a really old house. I think it celebrated 100 years maybe while we were living in it. And same, we pulled up the carpet to find that the beautiful parquet floor that was probably installed on day one had been removed in part where there used to be a wall, and then the wall had been torn back out, but they just carpeted over that because, why seal it? Yeah.
Exactly.
And it was like 6 layers deep on the stairs. It was beige and then burgundy and then dark green and then back to beige. It was great.
Yep. It's very real. But we did hit the old floor lottery, fortunately. The second floor had all beautiful white oak.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Unfortunately, it all slants hard to the right towards the stairs. So it's a bit of a fun house. So if you're into that type of thing, perfect house.
A great place for Hot Wheels. Pew!
Oh my God. Yeah. That or the challenging golf putts. You can work on those too, because, it's unforgiving surface. How are you, Giovanni? Giovanni you might have talked about this already, but you did some mission work helping out folks in Texas.
I am still trying to catch up, honestly, physically. And so I was down in Central Texas for 2 weeks. I led a team of 80 plus volunteers from 17 different states. And so it was, these things are always hard because A, you don't know what you're walking into. B, there's never any organization down there, right? The counties all fight with each other about where's the county line and who does it fall on, and politicians and then local communities. I mean, a lot of times churches kind of take lead and charge, but then you even have controversy within those. And so the hard part was getting down there for me. I was on the ground 4 days before the team showed up to make sure accommodations were set up. We had food for the week, but more than that, where we were deploying and who we were helping. And so it's rural out there. So it's not like you go to a neighborhood and you start asking around. I was literally using my iPad and following aerials of the rivers and the creeks to go find where the devastation was. And I mean, it was really anywhere along those because the water came up 32 feet in less than an hour. So it was 1,000-year flood.
I have trouble comprehending that.
Yeah. Well, and you can only see it, right? Which goes back to you have to see it to believe it. And I've now been on the ground for hurricane response, tornado response. I was in North Carolina for flood response, but that was more mudslides than anything. And so this one was completely, just to see the power of Mother Nature is absolutely mind-blowing. And I mean, complete trees, roots and all. And I'm talking about 50-plus-year-old trees just completely just laid down or swept down stream. I mean, full homes I mean, typically we go in and we do what we call muck out, which is cleaning out the home from mud, or in a lot of cases, people don't realize it. Like if the house gets too flooded, the insulation gets wet and falls through the ceiling. And then it's
Gets
mud,
too
it's
heavy.
dirty from the water. Yeah. And then it looks like mud, but it's not. But this time it was either the homes were either completely gone, they were swept away, they were demolished, or basically completely devastated to the point where they weren't even livable. There was no salvaging them. We did do a couple mucks, but I mean, some of the saddest stories, I mean, I've shared this on LinkedIn and my personal stuff, but I mean, an 80-year-old couple who had been married, for 63 years, and a creek basically flowed through their entire house and then met with the river. And we were finding, I had a team of sawyers that were basically 500 yards away from their front door downriver, cutting through trees and finding their front door, which is over 100 years old, jewelry amidst the mud, and just the, silt, photo albums, family quilts, all kinds of stuff. And so it was just, it's devastating to see, but at the same time, it's so encouraging and inspired to see the community come together and see people show up for each other that don't even know each other. And I mean, one of the most inspiring parts for me with that, when these things, I always tell the story of the little girl that's walking down the beach, picking up starfish and throwing them in the water, and someone walks up, is like, you're not going to save them all. And she picks up a starfish, throws it in, and she said, well, I saved that one and made a difference in its life. And so that's all we're called to do sometimes. And so we can spread a little bit of hope and help one family. I mean, we were able to help 9 different families, but this one in particular, I really took an affinity to, because I mean, I call him Cowboy, because literally before I even got out there, I saw a picture of him on Facebook sitting on his chair in front of the entire home, devastated, all their belongings out front, and he's just sitting there in a cowboy with a cowboy hat and a cane, just watching. But it helps you understand, especially in the world that we live in today, that there is really good people out there that care about each other and will go out of their way for each other. And so, I just love being able to play whatever little piece I can in that.
I'd say it's a lot more than a little piece, Gio.
I
So
would
give
agree with
a
that,
little bit
Kurt.
more credit, because I know a lot of people. I don't know anyone else that has in them as much, I guess, generosity and selflessness that you do. So huge praise to you. On a much lighter note, when you were looking through some of that mud, it looks like mud. It reminded me of the amazing joke my dad always says. Sometimes it looks like glue, but it's snot.
I can't wait to tell
Oh,
my kids that. They're going to
I
think I'm
just love you.
hilarious.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. And Wesley,
And
what have you
Wesley-
been up to? It's middle of summer, kids at home, a flourishing business. I know you've had
Amazing
conferences.
Amazing background,
Gosh,
amazing
guys.
sound gear, and this is just so professional.
It's the cover of the Taylor Swift album. I mean,
you know what?
she's a Swiftie.
When I put this dress on this morning, knowing that we were recording later today, Gio, I was like, you know what? This is perfect. Don't change. It's got pink and like turquoise in it, and that will make Gio think of Taylor Swift. And I think I should just stick with it.
Yeah. No, it's a good choice. It's a good choice. So tell us what's going on in the
Taylor Swift one day. I mean, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah. If she would like to help lend me some of her money, we could be even closer friends.
Oh,
that's funny.
It's an idea.
It's about being close to Tay, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
So what's going on in the Edmonds household?
Yeah, our kids go back to school on Monday, which is just absolutely crazy. So I'm in Atlanta. So Atlanta public school system goes back to school on August the 4th, which is just absolutely crazy. So we are going into pre-K and second grade. Pretty exciting. So the weekend ahead looks like the Target run for the school supplies, which I am way more excited about than they are. It's like the best part of going back to school. But it's been a great summer. A lot of family time, a lot of time at the pool. The kids have been inundated with camps. That's the only way my husband and I can both work full time, is if they're at camp. So they've camped their little hearts out. It's football camp, and then grandparent camp, and then sleepaway camp, and then you name it, and they're there. But it's been a great summer. But I always look forward to getting back to a routine and a schedule. I don't know if y'all feel like that, but it's nice to have a little bit of that free time. And typically, summer break brings like a family beach trip or mountain trip or whatever it is that you like to do with your family. But nice, but we thrive on structure, especially with two wild little boys. We thrive on structure.
Well, Kurt's got his annual family Florida trip coming up, right, Kurt?
I do. Nothing like going to North Florida in the summer, leaving the heat of New Jersey to go to the surface of the sun. That is North Florida.
What part of Florida, Kurt?
So it's a little bit further south than normal, but usually we will do Amelia Island.
Yes.
Now we will be doing St. Augustine. It's not too far, but it's a great trip, beautiful part of the world. But my God, I am not built for the heat.
Well, I know your family enjoys going down there and getting away, especially as KJ's gotten older. I'm sure he loves the beach more than he did when he was younger. It was harder to keep track of, but
Totally.
He's a little beach bunny?
Yeah, he's a little fish. So
yeah,
he properly learned how to swim last year, and then this year we put him in swim team, and he took to it. He did really good.
That's great.
He placed in his age group, which I did not have that on my bingo card, but did great. And now we're going to see how he does in the ocean. His mom's a little scared about it. I think he's going to do great, but yeah,
that's awesome.
More on that in a few weeks.
All right. Well, let's talk a little business. So, Kurt, the census is end of year planning or I guess essentially, planning for next year. And then Wesley, you're in the middle of all these design conferences and getting ready for GWA, and you guys are hosting the closing happy hour.
We are. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So really excited about what's ahead. But I think coming out of summer's always kind of has a little lull back to what y'all were sharing. And so I think the most important part for me here was to catch up with y'all. But secondly, kind of what are y'all hearing out there? What conversations y'all having? Y'all get to talk to different people than I do. Kurt, you get a kind of a view of the entire country, but also even global. What are you guys seeing overseas? And I know your beautiful boss was just in town, and so I'm sad that he didn't come to Texas and go hunting with me, but we'll let him get by with that for now.
But your boss, I'm assuming you mean Ian, because he is a handsome man, and had the schedule aligned, I'm sure he would love to come shoot stuff with you. Although he is terrified of guns. It is pretty funny watching him and just handle guns and be around guns, because it's just not something that he is around in London very often. But that's besides the point. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people looking to switch yards for inspiration. Everyone that I speak to is trying to figure out the secret sauce there. They're trying to understand how and what they could do to be similar to switch yards. It's impressive as an outsider looking in. And I know that there's a number of different conversations that either you or other podcasts are going to be surfacing here shortly. So I know that the industry is looking very closely at that model and what that can mean for different sub brands within already well-known brands in the industry. So that's what's happening locally. Abroad, you're looking for additional streams of revenue. That's a much more mature market. If you look at the UK, they're looking for things outside of the traditional arbitrage model and traditional upselling of services. Also seeing a bit more hospitality / amenity type of offerings in more Class A. That's both in America and abroad. Also seeing expansion in APAC. We're seeing a ton of traction from new entrants, but also more mature entrants looking to consolidate services with one provider. So overall, ton of activity considering the lull of summer, and it is very much a lull at the moment. But I would say the tail end of August, we usually start to see things pick back up, and then through September, where some real activity happens, leading conveniently right into October around GWA, where we'll be announcing some incredibly exciting stuff, but we will put a pin in that until later.
Well, Kurt, I want to hear how Illumo is going. That it's now been a couple months since launch, and maybe some of the things that you're going to be announcing soon are involved with that, but staying away from things you can't say. How is Illumo? How's the drop going? We had a blast getting to partner with you guys at the Juicy conference and are still talk about it honestly internally all the time about what a just a beautiful combination that was to be able to put our products together. And so I'd love to hear how that's going for you guys. It was so new when I saw you last
Yeah.
that how's that been going?
It's still very new, but it's also still very talked about. People still
Good.
want to deploy it. So we have a ton of different test fits that are scheduled to be installed. We have a ton of different initial customers that are going to be taking it and really putting it through its paces. It is still a very new product. We fortunately have a great group of customers who raised their hand and said, we want to be first. They can't all be first, but they could be on the list of the first. So there is much debate as who the first install is going to be, and that's going to be tied to timing and the proper installers getting it on the door. But listen, that's a good
Hey,
spot to
that's
be
a
in.
good debate.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And as far as deployments with Room, we're super excited to be able to work with you guys further. We have a couple of initial conversations there as well. So hopefully those customers can get the approvals to get all the installs coming in the fall. If I did say, if anyone's interested in learning more about Illumo, obviously please reach out. But it does involve a little bit of an installation and kind of the right application. So we're happy to have those conversations too. But yeah, it's going great.
Good. That's awesome. I knew it would be. It's aesthetically beautiful just as much as it is simple to use, and that's saying a lot for someone who gets very confused on the technical side of most things, which would be myself. I get very confused, and it was not confusing, which, whew, good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we hope it's going to be a default product on every Room booth that gets deployed.
Yeah, Curtin, what are you seeing out there from a growth and acquisition? I know you've got, some of your bigger clients, obviously just share what you can, but Heinz and Tishman Spire and Serendipity Labs and some of these bigger ones. I mean, are you still seeing continued growth and acquisitions? And I mean, we're even seeing mergers to some extent, but what are you seeing out there that you can share?
Yeah, as far as big ticket sales, we're going to see some stuff hit the market very, very soon. That'll be public that I just can't wait to talk about, but I can't when it comes to some of the well-known household brands. We're also seeing slow rollouts of buildings that are starting to get a level of amenitization, a level of product offering that's not just a traditional lease that's hitting the market, but we've not seen as many landlords as you would hope really commit to running a hospitality brand, which I still think is a huge opportunity for the rest of the market and anyone who's listening to this conversation to feel confident that what you're presenting still is new, still is interesting. It's getting the conversation of CapEx and initial deployment, whether it be through a non-conventional TI package or something where you're coming to the deal with some cash to get into it. Those are the deals that are winning. Because if you're going to a landlord and expecting a big check to do these deployments, those aren't the deals that are progressing. We're also seeing some big brands consolidating and getting out of some of their older agreements that just weren't fit for purpose or are no longer fit for purpose. So some of that stock is hitting the market, not as much or as frequent as we would hope, any of us, but being in touch with quality brokers like Geo, like Mike Kloppenberg, they can get you in touch with those opportunities really quickly. And having those relationships before those spaces go back is something I would highly recommend so that those landlords know who you are. It's not a big rush to get to know you, to vet you out. Once that space hits the market, having that relationship beforehand will help speed things up so that you're already in tow, you're part of the plan, you're part of the budget, which is now being set. So important for you guys to realize that budgets are now starting to be put together. They're being approved over the next, call it month and a half. They'll get approved and signed off by everybody by the end of the fall. and go live January 1st, but you got to take December out of the mix because it's also kind of like the summer. It's a dead month. So if you're not in a pole position to win in November, you're almost having to wait a full calendar year for you to be able to have those conversations again. So a little peek behind the curtain of how these decisions are made, things that I've learned in my 8 years of doing this that hopefully somebody can benefit from. And I've been talking for a long time. So over to you, Wesley.
Yeah, Wesley,
Well,
with room and everything you're seeing, conversations you're having, I know you're looking at some partnerships across the country in different ways and shapes and forms. Can you talk about any of those and kind of what the goal is? I think part of what we're all trying to figure out is how are people using space? What kind of space are they using? Will they use certain products that are different than we've had in the past? Great example is it'll be interesting to see. So Regis has been, or IWG has been buying the Vera walls to put into space to break into offices at a lower cost point. So they say. I don't really believe that based off the cost of that, but I'll be real curious to see if people are willing to take offices that have modular, like truly modular furniture in those walls because of sound mitigation and those things. But you've got some different product types and are trying to position those in different ways. What can you share about that and kind of what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So in June,
I appreciate you appreciating the question.
no,
I appreciate you appreciating the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. It sounds better on the mic, doesn't it? If I say
It
it
does.
smooth.
It sounds
way
so
better.
good.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, let's go, Taylor.
Yes. If only I could sing, I would, but that would be bad. Okay, so in June of this year, we launched quite a few products, but the ones that will be most applicable immediately to the Flex world is the expansion of the room collection. So we've been working on this for a long time now, and the collection includes larger sizes than what anybody familiar with room now is currently familiar with. So this includes the phone booth that so many of you have, and then what we call the room S, the room small, which is kind of that single person private office focus room, or the 2-person up to 4 people meeting room. So that's the extent of the product. We've had the phone booth and then the focus room or the meeting room in the room S, and that's been it. So earlier this year, we launched the acoustic lounge collection, which is more of the freestanding chair or a little, it's not fully enclosed. It's a great kind of accessory to if you're getting a privacy phone booth, you could also have something next to it that definitely dampens sound, but it's not completely enclosed, more of an accessory chair, lounge chair, up to sofas or a little meeting space. And then in June, we launched the collection. So that now includes room M, so a medium. If you basically put 2 smalls back to back, you got more of a square shape. That's the medium. So it can now fit more of a large private office setup or a larger meeting table. And in some setups, that is ADA accessible. And then the large is the largest version we have right now, the room L, which is kind of like 3 of the room S's back to back to back. And that allows you to do a full office setup or a much larger meeting space. We've now expanded the options to where you don't have to have the furniture come with it. The little U-shaped table doesn't have to come in your meeting room. You don't have to get the height adjustable table and credenza in your focus room if you have something else you want to use, or you had something different in mind, or you just want it to be empty and then put some of your own furniture in it. So it really expands the use case. What that does is also open up the conversation, to your point, Gio, about planning much earlier in the process. So the phone booth is a great day 1 item, but it's, some would say, an even better day 2 item. They wait, they get maybe 1, they see how often is it used, and then they get 1 more, they get 3 more, they get 8 more, just depending on how's your clientele using it, how often do your members ask for a phone booth type space. With the larger units, that's not going in, day 2. You're planning for that. You're usually tying something that big into your fire suppression system, not to get overly nerdy, but you're definitely planning ahead. And so that's been really fun to get into the conversation of layouts. I mean, that taps into my background as a designer to start looking at floor plans and laying things out. And I've been spending a lot of my time this summer looking at the cost per square foot of a traditional office build out, whether you're starting with a shell space or you're using TI and doing your renovation, and how that compares to basically, it's not prefab construction because it's really not. It's freestanding modular construction is a better way of looking at it. But how do the costs compare? Especially, are we looking at apples to apples? Are you considering the power, the carpet, the ceiling, the HVAC, so that's been a fun for me, at least. Some people will probably find that horrible, but for me, it's been a really fun test to see how do we look at cost per square foot? How do we make sure we're saving money for the landlord, the owner, the operator? And it's been really interesting.
What's the question on that? So is that part of the sales pitch that you show an ROI on, what it would be if it was, drywall and studs?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just the sustainability factor, which I understand not all people maybe have the budget to pay attention to or the timeline to pay attention to. But anytime you're having to gut the walls, one, that's just a lot of trash, but two, it's a lot of downtime. You're having to tape it off. It's never, you say you're going to tape off the dust. That never happens. So it's a whole wing of your space is closed while you renovate. And so it's also, we're working through my best friend ChatGPT to really figure out how do you build in the cost of downtime? How do you also build in the fact that, especially with a flex operator, I mean, your open to closed ratio may change drastically over the next 5 years. But have you set yourself up for success in terms of, can you pretty easily add on to the offices without needing traditional construction? So that's the challenge right now, is to really zero in on that ROI. So owner operators or a traditional client knows what they're getting with modular versus, custom construction.
Sure. Yeah. And then if I'm hearing you correctly, it's really kind of twofold. There's the suite within a suite product with the bigger phone booths. And then I guess modularity, being able to take that down and shift it if that particular room doesn't need it. That's the big, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And the phase 2 of this product category that has not launched yet, but is coming and is in engineering. And so I'm not speaking out of turn by talking about it, is that ability to do shared walls. So you could easily, like, to me, it's when you talk about when you talk about like a dirt wall system or a Falk built or anything like that, it's still tilt up and it's still built in place. So while you can take it down and reuse it, the modules are not the same module. It's very customized to your floor plan. So this would be all modules. Like, it is 42 or it is 42. That is it. Like, your dimension is your dimension. But you can share a wall, you can share a post, you can build on, you can take down, because then it really opens up how flexible your space is and how much downtime, little to no downtime if you've built with that, because then you can open it right up and relocate you're not getting into the ceiling space, you're not getting into the plenum, you're not getting into all the guts.
Plenum is a word that, I don't think we use enough as a society.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. Plenum. If you want me to start throwing out more of my architectural textbook words at you for the rest of this conversation, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, and I think the most important part.
That's an optional add-on.
You crack me up. The most important part, more so than the construction and all that stuff, is the MEPs, the life safety, all that stuff that you don't have to cut into the ceiling grid and all that stuff, right? And so as we're looking at new spaces or looking at expanding or making spaces more efficient, it's going, okay, if we don't have to cut into that, what does it cost? But I think an interesting part is, I was in one of those spaces or pods that was recently deployed, and it's going, it was funny because there's a file cabinet under the desk. And I'm like, unless you're a midget, which there could
Is
be.
not a politically correct term. Go
What
on.
is what is the politically correct? Those little people?
Little person. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Vertically challenged.
I'm a vertically challenged person.
But either way, I was just like, how does someone stick there? How does this work? You can't fully fit into it. And there's not enough room to put the file cabinet behind you. So it's going, do people even need a file cabinet? Is it outside of the space? Where do you put it? But I think those are part of the things you're trying to learn as Kurt points to me, even though politically correct, his mother should have told him you don't point your finger at people. But either way, Kurt, what do you have to say?
Well, Giovanni, something that I would love to see polled is how many people actually use filing cabinets. There's so many of these PEDs that are out there. And I just know from walking around our office, there's maybe a pair of chopsticks that were left over for someone's takeout sushi. Or
it is a snack drawer 99% of the time.
That's what it is. And then what are we doing here?
What are we doing
They're
here?
expensive. They're heavy. They take up space.
I think it's an emotional support filing cabinet.
Or is it an excellent salesperson upselling, saying, "Of course you need this."
Of course, it's that too, for sure.
Emotional support. I get that.
It's an emotional support filing cabinet. Like you walk into a space and definitely we're starting to work some of the partnerships you talked about, Gio. We're starting to work with more brands that are using some of our focus rooms. So very small footprint, but they're using them as leasable private offices. Of course, being very upfront about the square footage. It's very small, but if you don't need a lot of space, you don't need a lot of storage, it's perfect. And Kurt, that's when we brought you guys in to start looking at possibly using Lumo for locking devices and starting to kind of bring it full circle. And in the fact that you could get more private offices, quote unquote, in a row by using something with a smaller footprint, but still being able to lease them to members and still being able to sell them to members or advertise them on an aggregator or whatever you want to do with that. Because most of the time, you're not probably needing that much storage. It's the emotional support of where do I put the stuff that I don't want to put on my desk. And so we're definitely expanding that too. I mean, Gio, I think that's a very valid point, is that we have some very thin credenzas that are made specifically to go in these units because it's your emotional support storage. You still have a place to put your stuff and your peanut butter and your chopsticks, but it's not taking up the whole space. You still got plenty of foot room. But you got a place to put your book bag, or just kind of thinking through the use case of it too it's always eye-opening, right? I mean, I'm sure y'all feel the same way of seeing how people use products or spaces versus what you thought they would do with it.
Wesley, are you allowed to bring peanut butter into an office nowadays?
Yes.
Just not salmon. No fish.
No fish.
No tuna.
The nut allergies, very real.
It's a good point. I have not come across that yet.
Okay.
That someone has had an issue with my peanut butter or someone else's.
Well, then you can't bring in gluten either, right? I mean, someone could get glutened.
I love that idea. You got gluten.
Oh, no.
You got, what happened? Oh man, I got glutened.
It was in the plenum.
That's right.
All right. So next is, Kurt, you asked me this question. I was like, let's talk about that later. All of it. We obviously just had Elevator on talking about Omaha, St. Louis, Kansas City. And you asked me a question, Kurt, about, kind of where we're seeing growth and everything around that.
Yeah. So my question to you earlier, kind of just an observation that I had, is it seems like the Heartland, Middle America, co-warehousing, non-standard type of offerings seem to have the most growth. Now, granted, some of these are newer offerings. So yes, adding one is 100% growth, but I'm starting to see just on the periphery, a lot of these new locations pop up where they hadn't been before. And my question to Gio was, is that my observation or is that a trend?
Yeah. And I think a big part of it that I told Kurt essentially is, I think some of these middle tier markets have been overlooked for a long time, right? Everyone got excited about the big markets. We'll call them the tier one markets. And, there was markets that were basically passed over for the sexier, bigger type markets. And I think what's happening is we're starting to see the evolution of the small operators in those markets, but also the larger operators are starting to go, well, we've kind of saturated the big markets. Now let's look at the tier two cities and markets. And I think that's a big part of what we're seeing. But even like I used the example with Kurt of Nashville, right? Nashville, all of a sudden we've had e-spaces continue to grow there. You've got Industrious and Ampersand that opened new locations. VentureX opened a new location. And so it's going, okay, what, and Nashville's a great market, but with some of these markets are they growing too fast? Is there enough product differentiation being offered, or how does it play out? Because we've seen these situations. I always use the example of Columbus and the Short North market, which is right outside of downtown, down the street from Ohio State University, where we saw Industrious do 2 locations, WeWork, and then Industrious, WeWork, Spaces, and then Serendipity Labs all open within like a 1 mile stretch. And I haven't gone back to look, but I don't know if more than one operator survived that. I know Spaces closed. I know Serendipity Labs closed. I don't know about the WeWork and the 2 the 2 Industriouses, but I think that's what ends up happening is everyone rushes to one market, and I just don't think there's enough depth there.
Yeah, I hope it's the case where the markets have been educated by let me flip that around. The consumer has been educated by the opportunities that the established players have educated them on, and now the demand is such that those opportunities are now interesting, whereas before the education wasn't there, so the adoption from the tenancy wasn't there, and now if you build it, they would come moment is finally occurring. I'd like that to be the narrative. I'm going to go with that. That's the answer I heard. So, yep.
I'll add too that I subscribe to Gensler's Dialogue Now newsletter. It's really fantastic if you don't already read it. But I mean,
does Gensler know what they're doing yet when it comes to flexible workspace co-working? Because they haven't known up until now.
Well, I got a comment on that, but I'll let Wesley continue.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I want to hear your comment on that, Kurt. But what's funny about that question, Gio, is I was just going to say it does tend to be more along some of the traditional, at least the newsletter gears itself towards kind of overarching themes. And Gensler definitely does more in the traditional office environment than the flex office environment, at least historically. And so, but I've seen a lot of articles lately in their newsletter about the rise of the city center, to your point, Kurt. And I think if like making some assumptions and kind of jumping there, but I can't help but think that has to have something to do with it, because as COVID, as we start to see kind of like all the changes that are taking place on the curtails of COVID, and the rise of flex for sure makes sense. The rise of hybrid work makes sense, but also the rise just in general of the city center and the walkability. And that's kind of been growing for a while now. And so to Kurt, like you said, we're starting to see kind of the fruits of the labor. And I think the more of these kind of middle America or second tier, third tier cities have been putting money and investing in revitalizing their restaurant scene, revitalizing their downtown or their midtown. And that what tends to come with that is the want for people to live, work, play. So a good coffee shop pops up, and then it makes more sense to have a co-working place there than it does. It's not instead of the suburbs, because I think the suburbs are definitely continuing to grow as well. But I do think that could be some of the reason behind this rise in cities that maybe we haven't seen it before, is this increase in the desire to be in this city center that doesn't just mean New York, Atlanta, Chicago, etc.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of HGTV, and it feels like there's more and more people that are trying to recreate the Chip and Joanna Gaines effect. So let's.
Oh yeah.
Here's to the strong downtown. And
If Ben and Aaron Napier could get a hold of every middle American city, we could. They just need about a year per city so that we can really lay out the episodes. The seasons. I
right,
mean,
that's
but
right.
if we could just line up the seasons, we could be done.
That's right. America's anyway. I'm not going to say great again because that would make Giovanni happy. So Gensler has done an amazing job as of late investing in folks like Randy Howder. Shout out to Randy Howder, who is a member of the Urban Land Institute Flex and Experience Council, and he's investing his time. Gensler's investing their money to be a part of that, to be better in the area of Flex. So he's certainly an individual to reach out to if you have any questions. Incredibly knowledgeable. He's out of the San Francisco office and really good resource. So Gensler, I think, has recognized that there's opportunity in this space, and they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're stepping up in a big way. So good on him and good on Gensler.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So do you get a piece of that commission or?
Yeah, I mean, that's on the back end though. So I need everyone on this podcast to contract with Gensler. So we're going to track clicks, and there's be a pay-per-click, and that'd be nice. I should do that. Why aren't I doing that? I should be doing that this whole time.
Yeah. Send out agreements. But I mean, speaking of that, let's kind of sell GWA. So we're finishing up we've finished up the schedule, and now we're working on speakers. And so really excited about what we've got. So we've lined up our 2 keynotes, and that's John Santora with WeWork.
Who don't know who John Santora is,
he's the CEO of WeWork.
There we go.
And Anna Levine Squires, who is the president of Industrious. So super excited to have them on, and they're going to be on 2 different days. And so it's been really fun to put this one together, just because there's been so many changes in the market and what's going on. And I mean, it's hard to squeeze all these conversations into 2 days, right? And trying to figure out what's a big session, what's a breakout session. And so that's what we did this year, is we're basically doing an owner track and an operator track. So if the owner operator wants to participate in kind of the bigger picture of the business, and then they want to bring their community manager or sales manager, things like that. But I mean, this gives you an idea of kind of some of the topics, and some of these overlap because we have them every year because there's new updates, right? So state of the market, we're going to talk about that and kind of what we're seeing out there. Brandon Medeiros, we all love, listen to Brandon, and he's got more data now on the space utilization and technology and how all that's playing out. And so that's really good. And we've got Molly with OFS, who is one of the owners and just an amazing person, has agreed to come join us. And so we're working on some really cool speakers on the design side of stuff. Maybe Randy's someone I need to reach out to, Kurt, and have that conversation. So thanks for throwing him out there and running point on that conversation. Thanks for agreeing to that. Certainly AI is becoming a bigger and bigger part of how we're working, right? I think, Wesley, I don't know, did you hear the episode that had Gina on from Village Workspaces in Denver?
Mm-mm.
So you got to go back and listen to that because you'll love it. She has a board of directors that she's put together. They're that ChatGPT put together for her. And so basically she has tied in people that have, I mean, for example, I'm going to throw these names out. I'm not saying this is who she has, but like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Kendra Scott, and, Tiffany, I don't know, one of the CEOs of Tiffany's. And essentially the ChatGPT creates the board based off of what those people would say and how they would advise you. So she'll ask her board questions, and it's based off of all the information that AI has gathered about those people. And so it's pretty crazy.
Super interesting.
Yeah. So I think AI is just continually, and we can put it in so many different boxes, right? How are you marketing? How are you building out space based off of it? Some people are asking ChatGPT what markets they should go to. I don't fully advise that, but I mean, it's just very interesting just to see what people are using some of these things for. I think we're continuing to see conversations about enterprise, right? What is the enterprise looking for? What does that look like? Are they really looking at taking large team spaces? Are they looking, just individual kind of satellite type locations?
Well, that speaks more to like, I mean, that goes back to the big design firm, whether it's Gensler or not, but that goes back to like an enterprise client, what they're typically, if they're big enough to be looking at utilizing flex as part of their real estate strategy, then they're probably coming from Class A space. They're probably coming from high design. They're probably looking at some kind of city center. Like, it's very interesting. All of these ideas are going to start to kind of meld more. It'll be fun to hear the speakers at GWA to kind of dive into more of this specifically, because I really do think we're going to start seeing more of a melding of these ideas.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I mean, it's always fun to have the conversation about staffing and culture, right? What are people doing differently? Because it's not only how are we bringing the consumer back, but how are we getting our staff and employees excited to want to deliver the hospitality and overall product that we're trying to sell, right? And I think that's a big part. And Kurt's such a big part of that for the census, is trying to figure out, okay, these new technologies coming out. He's out trying to sell these access panels that help people, and what's so unique about them versus others. And I mean, because there's a cost associated with that when you got to go back and change those. It's not only, new spaces. And then, I mean, I think we've got a couple really interesting ones on KPIs and how those are done. And Kane's going to kind of put a group together that talks about those. And then we kind of have a little all-star panel of marketing metrics with Taylor and a few of those guys that really focus on that side of stuff. And I mean, I think there's a great opportunity for people to figure out, especially, I mean, like the marketing tying back to AI is going. SEO was so big. Well, now that people aren't using SEO, Google to look at stuff, they're doing AI. I mean, how are Taylor and Ruben and other marketing specialists kind of leading and advising people from that standpoint? So we'll have to see, how those conversations continue to evolve. And Kurt's gotten very serious. He took his glasses off. I don't know what's going on. Kurt, you all right?
Yeah.
Something to
No,
say?
I was just thinking about it. So obviously, I know I almost only use Google AI to do my searches. So I'm wondering what they would have to say about using the AI Gemini product within Google, how that is a different approach. Because I just kind of thought it was just scraping it. And then I had that thought, and then you caught me taking my glasses off and looking like I was in deep thought. But that's really what was going on. And then I also thought about, what if I built a AI bot that said, what would Giovanni do? And what would that be like? And then I was terrified as to what the outcome would be.
I think
So
I'd be really tired. I think I would just immediately get really tired.
You should wake up at 4 a.m. and run 4 miles.
Then cold plunge, and then get on an airplane.
Then get on an airplane.
We love you.
have a day worth of meetings, get back on airplane, more cold plunging and running.
Well, I'll do the same thing with AI. We'll practice that together.
I'm terrified. Yeah.
Trust me, and at least you're seeing what's on the outside. Imagine what's going on inside of my head and the hamster wheels that are being turned.
I love that idea. But that's what ChatGPT sends back. It's just a hamster on a wheel.
I hate that for you. So let's finish with, okay, how do y'all see the second half of this year playing out? I mean, we're little over halfway through the year. I mean, what do you think? I mean, we're starting to see the tariff conversation being played out. And this is not, I don't want it to be a political conversation, but from the standpoint of, I think there's been a lot of people sitting on the sidelines waiting. We're having to see people shift back and forth. I mean, we're finally starting to see how that plays out, right? The money actually coming in. So I think that's a big part. So curious about what you're seeing there, because there's been a lot of people waiting to see how those things play out. And then I think the other part is just continuing to see the evolution of finance rates. Finance rates have really affected the industry, and people have finally kind of realized, okay, we're going to be sitting here for a while. We may see a couple percentage point, a couple, 25% basis or 0.25% being dropped. But what else are you seeing out there, do you think, that's going to affect the back end of this year?
Wesley?
Kurt.
Oh,
They all
Kurt,
pointed at each other.
my mom said not to point. I learned that from you. That my mom told me that, and I
Well,
forgot.
in her defense, she pointed up. You pointed right at her. So, I mean, I think one is like violently threatening, and the other one's just kind of, hey, it's on you.
All right, deal.
I got your back, Wesley.
So shout out to Hector. He actually forwarded me an article about the way that financing is going to be impacted from preferential tax treatment in January. So I would imagine that any big tech refreshes are going to be postponed until January. When it comes to our line of work and when our sales are hardware dependent, that would also, I imagine, follow suit, so that the next, I guess, 6 months or so, 5 months would certainly be impacted by that. Additionally, we are seeing the effect of tariffs. The hardware that we're creating is pretty much doubled in price. So for Alumo hardware, it's not ideal for those tariffs. I guess I'd be really curious to see the impact on leasing. I get a bunch of reports into my email every day. I see that, Maine and Maine leasing seems to do really well, but some markets seem to really struggle as of right now. I have to believe that has something to do with tariffs, has to do with economic uncertainty. Beyond that, I know that summer is not a fair barometer to understand deal flow and levels of interest. So I'm really curious to see what happens in 3 weeks' time.
I'm probably not going to be your expert on financing details. I am very grateful to not have to spend a lot of time researching.
But let me ask you a question. I mean, for you, you don't have to deal with the tariffs because y'all have robots and
Yeah, I mean, we
humans in the
do.
middle of nowhere building this stuff. So
Yeah, we do in a very small way, and we are very, very, very fortunate. So we manufacture in the US, so that does take care of quite a few things, but we still have some of our metal parts, like pneumatic cylinders that would go in the base of a chair, or some things like that that are just that we source from overseas. So in 2021, we made a huge investment in a lot of the metal parts and pieces that we use on a regular basis, including like, sheet metal and things that are used for extruded parts and all the manufacturing details. Because we had been in a position in early 2020 that, I mean, supply chain was a problem for everybody. Of course it was, but we really had underestimated, and I'm not speaking out of term. I mean, this would be something that any of our leadership would agree on, is that there were just a lot of things that we didn't expect, and we were really in bad shape for some parts and pieces due to supply chain. And we really, thankfully, our president and CEO made a pretty large financial commitment to, like, hey, let's make sure we never get in that position again, which is difficult for a company that builds per spec, right? We don't inventory our items. So we can inventory parts and pieces, but we're not putting together a desk. We're not putting together a chair until your purchase order comes in, and we build it based on your purchase order. So we made a large financial investment to do everything we could. Gio, you got to see the monster machine that we don't talk about. You can't take pictures of it. It's very proprietary. It's so we're definitely in a better position. That's a long, overly winded way of saying we're in a great position for some of the things that we would otherwise not be. We would be dealing with a lot more tariffs on some of the parts and pieces that we source if we had not made those financial decisions a couple years back. But that's not to say that we're not still dealing with it. So maybe not in as big of a way, but it also, we have to play this right now. What OFS is sitting on is this decision of when do you put price increases on all of the products that then affect the purchasing power of all of our clients and how much they can afford and how affordable our pieces are. Do we do that now in anticipation of what's to come? So far, we have chosen not to do that. We feel like we're in a pretty good position. And so we have not had to do any mid-year price increases. Typically, the commercial furniture industry sees a price increase around January, February. And then some manufacturers, you might see another one mid-year. It's usually just based on inflation, right? So this year we had our price increase, which was pretty minimal in January. We have not had to do another one. We've been very fortunate to say that. We're one of very few, I think, in our industry left that have not had to do that. So hoping we don't have to. Time will tell. But definitely feel very thankful to be in the hands of people who've been researching this for a long time to come and trying to get us in the best position possible.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's not only tariffs, but I mean, construction prices. I was just talking to a friend yesterday about construction prices. Those have just continued to go up, and we're not seeing them come down. And I'm being told they're not going to come down for a while.
I think they will either, Gio.
And so,
because think about, you've got the human behind that, right? Like for contractors or for mill workers or for a lot of the work that gets done, there's still not, I mean, that's not a machine doing that. That's a human being. And so it's really hard to take that back. It's really hard to say we were charging this, but you know what? We're going to come back down on that. I mean, eventually if everyone does, it'll get competitively lower a little bit, but I don't see that delta coming down much at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of factors that they're yet to play out for the rest of the year. But I mean, I've seen, I don't know if y'all read the article, but there was an article basically that a couple of the real estate people had said it was going to be 2027 before we started to kind of see the commercial real estate office market kind of slowly, I mean, I'll call it recover. I think we're already seeing some recovery, but in some markets we're still seeing, we haven't seen the bottom, right? With buildings going back to banks and tenant renewals coming up and them downsizing and all that kind of stuff. But that's the positive thing for our industry, right? Is that people are looking for flexibility and they're looking to take less liability risks, also not knowing what their long-term plans are, and they're downsizing into some of our spaces. And so I think we'll continue to take advantage of that. I mean, the other one that we're seeing a bunch of is the meeting space, offsite collaboration with people not always being in the same space, and where do they come together and how they have, spaces that they can have ideation sessions and things like that are unique. So there's factors that we're seeing continually growing and offering additional value and product types to our industry. All right, Kurt, what are your favorite 3 things about Wesley?
I'm going to say headphones, mic, dress.
You went present. You went straight up present.
No, I will say her willingness to collaborate, openness to new ideas, and the support she's offered me. And just as of late, that Juicy conference, she was so supportive. She threw her full support behind it.
She even flew in just to set up, right?
Yeah,
she didn't attend the conference. I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
She didn't give me a hug while she was there, by the way.
I didn't overlap with you.
You didn't even tell me you were there. And that's all right. That's okay. I mean, I'll take that in consideration when we do board elections. Wesley, what about Kurt?
I love that Kurt is a friend to everybody. I feel like, Kurt, we met and then all of a sudden we were just friends. And I really love that about you. You're very personable. And that definitely lends into also being very, very open. Really, I mean, I don't mean to steal this because you just said this, but really open to collaborate. I feel like we had not really worked together in any way, had the ability to, is a better way of putting it. And Liz was like, hey, you two, figure this out. We hopped on a call and you were equally willing to collaborate with me and be open-minded and not be like, this feels risky. This feels like you gave a lot of trust to me and my team, which I value very much. And then you are a wonderful networker. I don't know that I've met anybody who networks as well as you do. It's very genuine, which I think makes someone a good networker. If you're just like, hey, how are you? Kirkpatrick, good to see you. And then you move on to the next person.
Some babies.
Yeah, that is the worst. And you are the opposite of that. You're very genuine. So it makes you a very great networker.
Thank you very much, Wesley.
More than networker, I use the word connector, right? He genuinely connects and loves people. And, I think it's something that's very obvious. And you've risen to the top of the entire industry as one of the top connectors that people always call and value for that. And so, as part of that is your ability to encourage and inspire people. More encouragement, inspiration, not so much, but you're still out there.
Tilt the slight. I was going to say all of those compliments that's both of you do that so well. Encouragers, connectors, lovers of people. You see that the work is so much more fun when you get to either work with the people that you know and love or send the people that you know and love to work with other people you know and love. Make connections. It's so much more fun that way. Y'all both do that beautifully.
Yeah, and then with you, Wesley, you always jump in regardless of when I text you. You're like, I'm all in, right? And you're like, yes, I can do that. Okay, and then occasionally you tell me no, but most of the time,
I've learned that I'm in good hands with Gio. You're not going to say, "Would you like to co-host this episode with me?" And then I'm going to get on, and it's going to be the worst. You're never going to, I can trust you. You're never going to throw me into something where it's a bad decision. So usually I just blindly say, yep. And then we'll figure it out.
I do the bad. I make the bad decisions on my own. I don't try to bring other people down with me.
That.
So I've learned to do that the special way. But again, I greatly appreciate and love you both. Thank you for jumping on and doing this, and excited to see you on the back half of this year. And y'all are big parts of the industry and my life, and both personally and professionally. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having us, Gio.
Zoom hug.
Air hug and a kiss.